So you had a blast. You teased at the beginning.
Yeah.
We wanted to hear something about the old best baseball player of all time.
So ESPN put out a list, and our producer Mark Ramos sent this to me, and I've been kind of sitting on it for a couple of weeks, but they sent out their top 100 Major League Baseball players of all time. And obviously when you have the downtime with the lockout, you're able to look some of these things up. But I'm going to burst the bubble on this because they have, and this may be unpopular, whatever, let me know. Like Tuttle said, you can at Blummer27 on both Instagram and Twitter. Tuttle is on there also, at Real David Tuttle, and of course at Bleacher Blums. But Babe Ruth is not the number one Major League Baseball player for me. He's just not. I know the statistics are there. He was a home run leader forever. 2,214 RBIs is absolutely ludicrous. And this whole idea of him being a two-way player is a farce. He pitched. Guess what he stopped doing after pitching for 2 years? Pitching, because he wasn't good. His numbers aren't all that great. He had a 2.28 in like the dead ball era when they were pitching beanbags up there. I mean, come on, man. And the idea that hitting 714 home runs, he was, let's define an era. How many guys in their era did better than entire teams? Babe Ruth was a guy who went out and put up, statistically, had better numbers than entire teams.
Yeah.
How that explains the competition for me a little bit. People
I
are
agree.
going to say that's what makes him great. I'm going to say that's what made him great, but at the same time, it kind of gave you a definition of what the league looked like.
That's right.
And Willie Mays, who is number 2 on this list, I think Willie Mays should be number 1. I think it's just because he was hyper athletic in the outfield. The numbers he put up were absolutely insane. Hitting over 300 for his career and having 660 home runs is beyond anything that I can comprehend. It's amazing to me to be that good at hitting and that powerful at hitting at the same time, yet playing a Gold Glove center field. So I'm in the Willie Mays camp. I don't know. Blow me up if you want, but Babe Ruth is
I
not
like it.
number 1.
Well, I agree with you, and I think I've said this here before. As optimistic as I am, I'm terrible at comparing eras, and I still they just came out with the 75-year anniversary team in the NBA, and I think Michael Jordan stayed number 1 and LeBron was number 2. I think that's right. I think Kobe could be in the top 5, but
Yeah.
I think they had him at 10, so I can disagree with that. But how do you go compare like eras? Like, Bill Russell still
That's
gets a lot of
ultimately the question. You're right.
That's right. Like Bill Russell gets a lot of critique because he won 11 championships, but he's not in the top 20 players of all time. It's kind of like, well, Tom Brady's won 7 Super Bowls and they call him the GOAT. So I don't know if it's because they thought his impact was more. I mean, Bill Russell just keeps losing luster every year. But how do we compare it? And I think you made a really good point. Barry Bonds was a fantastic baseball player, and we talked about when Jeff Kent batted behind him or when nobody batted behind him or, Rich Aurelia batted behind him. Like, it made Rich Aurelia's, career because he had to drive in runs. But Barry Bonds was unbelievable, as playing on the, against him.
Barry Bonds is in my top 5. He's not 8th or
Right.
9th or whatever he was in this list.
No, that's right. But you look at his numbers, and if you took his normally his 45 home runs and his 120 ribbies, you can't add up the next 3 guys in the lineup and go, yeah, Barry Bonds had more home runs and more RBIs. Like you said, Babe Ruth, with 40 home runs and 110 RBIs was more than the next 7 dudes in his lineup. This guy had 2 home runs and he hit 250, and then this guy had 7 RBIs. And anyway, that tells you, to your point, that tells you a little bit about the era. And I just think, there's always some, even when I read old books, there's always some lore and some kind of folktale that kind of just continues to foster and foster and foster. And, I don't know if it'll ever go away, but I would agree. I would agree with you and disagree with ESPN that Babe Ruth is the greatest baseball player of all time. His numbers were fantastic, but if you're not facing, I mean, we joked about this before. Goose Gossage, when I was young, growing up on the East Coast, he would come in with 1 out in the 7th inning. 6 2/3.
Yeah,
he's like, yeah, all right, and I almost felt like Steinbrenner. I felt like Steinbrenner was the first guy with the phone down to the bullpen. It's like,
Get the goose.
Hey, where's Billy Martin? Where's the red phone to Billy Martin? He's up there watching the game, and it's 4-2, and oh shit, they're in some trouble. Hey, get Goose up. Goose Gossage would come in, get out of the 7th inning, throw an 8th inning and the 9th inning and get a save. Like, that's a real save. Babe Ruth did not face those kind of pitching guys, like you said, maybe beanbags or whatever. But I think the field was certainly slanted in his favor, and it doesn't mean he wasn't a great baseball player, but it's, you know, it's kind of like a guy before his time, you know.
That may have been more the case. I think that's exactly what the case is, because the league was not ready for somebody to go out there and do what he was doing.
Correct.
It was amazing.
And the comparator would be Jim Brown, and it just came to me. My dad would talk about Jim Brown like, you know, God's gift. But, you know, Jim Brown was 6'2", about 220. Most of the linemen in the NFL in the 60s and 70s weighed about 215, 220. So Jim Brown is running like a gazelle and knocking people over. I mean, that's what made him so fantastic. And so I think, again, that doesn't diminish what Jim Brown did, but he was a man before his time. He was bigger and stronger. Now we look at somebody like Aaron Donald, who dominates. All these guys are professionals. They wanted to be professional football players since they were little. They all weigh 300 pounds. And here's a guy that's actually standing out. I mean, standing out in today's game, regardless of what, you know, professional sport you're in, is a much bigger accomplishment. And I think we've certainly covered that.
So if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can get notified when we post new videos.